My name is Brian Carey, and I want to build a video game. Today we're going to learn how to use shape keys. We're going to figure out shape keys in Blender 2.8, and we're going to figure out how to shoot that shape key data from Blender over into the Godot game engine. We're going to learn what shape keys are, how to use them, how to control them, what they can do, what they can't do, how to export them over into Godot, and how to control that shape key with a script. My name is Brian Carey, and I am the Savvy Barbarian. So today is all about shape keys. So we're going to start in Blender and we're going to end over in the Godot game engine. Shape keys are very useful. They're one of your animation tools. The one you probably are most familiar with is using armatures to control animation, and the other one, however, is shape keys. You usually use shape keys for things like morphing objects from one thing into another. For example, when you're picking out your character's face at the beginning of the video game and you're in Skyrim and you're trying to build your hero or build the hot chick, and you're adjusting the distance of the eyes and changing the shape of the mouth, they're using shape keys. This is how they do that, and this is what we're going to show you today. This is Blender. We're using 2.82a, and we might as well start with the starter cube, and his name is Jeffrey. Now I've added a little extra geometry, as you can see here. At least I hope you can see the lines, as YouTube tends to degrade the video a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to change Jeffrey from a cube into a pyramid. And maybe we'll add an extra shape key too, just to see how that works. Shape keys are actually pretty simple. All you need to do is come over here to this little vertex tab and give that a click. And there's a section here called shape keys. So shape keys are basically where you're going to start with an object where all the vertices are in one configuration, and you're going to finish where all the vertices have moved, or all or some of the vertices have moved to a new orientation. So we're going to take a snapshot of what this object looks like. Now right now, if we go into edit mode, we can see I just have a couple extra vertices here, but I have the basic cube. And when I go over to shape keys, all I got to do is click this here plus button, and that is going to add something called the basis. Now, the basis is kind of Blender's way of holding the starter data. Like, where did all my vertices start? They're all starting here. They're all starting in this basis. So it's going to keep track of where all your vertices are, and then we're going to make changes based on this. So the trick is, you want to click this plus symbol a second time. And once we click that, we're going to end up with another thing called key 1. So now we've got basis and we've got key 1. We're going to change key 1 and we're going to rename that to pyramid. And now we got a pyramid. Now, if I have this selected, if I have basis selected and then I go into edit mode, any changes that I made here are going to be part of the new and permanent shape. So this is kind of the neutral position, the neutral face on your character, the starting position of your morphing object, so to speak. So what we want to do is make sure that pyramid is selected and not basis. Now, any changes that we're going to make are going to be applied to this pyramid shape key, and we'll leave our basis alone. So I'm going to go into the pyramid here, and I'm going to select, let's just say, let's select all most of the top row of these vertices. Go to front view, and I'll drag those down. And we'll drag that down a little bit more. So it looks roughly like that. And it's not perfect, but as soon as I leave edit mode, you can see it's like my changes are gone, because I'm actually still looking at the basis. So my pyramid here has this 0 next to it, and this is the value. So the value here, as I drift this from 0 to 1, and where that is this is the minimum range is set to 0, and the maximum range is 1. As I go from 0 to 1, you can see I'm shifting from my basis shape to my key 1 that I've named pyramid to my pyramid shape. And it's just about that easy. Now, just for fun, let's make a second shape key on this same object and see what happens. I'm going to start with the basis again, and I'm going to click plus one more time. And this time, instead of leaving this key 2, we'll call this floor, right? So I'll make the floor bigger. So what we're going to do is, with floor selected and not basis, I'll go into edit mode, and I'm going to select this bottom face, and I'm just going to scale that out a little bit and see what happens. Scale. Okay. And that's it. Now when I come back into object mode, as you can see, my changes are stored in floor, and I'm back looking at my basis again. When I show what is in my value here for floor, you can see there's my changes for floor. If I select pyramid and change the value, I can see I've got a pyramid. In fact, I can have them both on at the same time. I can have them at different points in their values to make new shapes. And then if you use this little arrow right there, you can actually create new shapes if you want. Where'd that go? New shape from mix. We could save this as a whole new shape key if we wanted to. So I've got these two shapes here. I've got the pyramid and I've got the floor. Now, one thing, this is a mistake that I made early on, and a lot of people do that. They get confused with how shape keys really work. Each vertice in this object is going to start at its location in base, and it is going to move to its final location, depending on how far your value is, in the shape key that you're applying to it. So let me jump over to another object here. So here is another Jeffrey. This is going to be fake Jeffrey. This isn't the one we were just working on. We'll export that one to Godot in just a moment. So let me add a few loop cuts here to give that a little bit more geometry, and then I'm just going to select the top face. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start this off with, same as we did before, we're going to create a basis, and then we're going to create a shape key. And the shape key, we're going to be calling that twist. All right, and so this is an interesting limitation of shape keys, and you'll want to be aware of this. So if we go into edit mode, and we've got twist selected first, so we're editing the shape key, we're not editing the basis. I'm going to go into top view. I'm just going to rotate the face 90 degrees. Let me turn that on with some influence on the other layers. So you can see that's doing just what I want, and it looks like I've twisted this thing just right. And so that's my shape key. So now let's test this out a little bit. When I adjust the value and go from my shape keys, from my basis to my twist, you can see it looks pretty good, but something's a little bit wrong. When you look at this top face, look at the size of this face. Look at the size of this square. When I adjust this value and start to apply my shape key twist, you see the square is actually getting smaller. It's full size, and then it's getting smaller, and then it gets bigger again. What's happening there? You see, what we wanted this to do is to start, let's just focus in on this one vertex. We wanted this particular vertex, we rotated it 90 degrees, and we wanted it to rotate out like this and land right here at this end position. But that's not what's happening. What's actually happening is this vertex is moving in a deadly straight line from here to here. Now watch this once again as I adjust the value of the shape key. Watch that. Watch this vertex right here. It's moving not out in a curve, it's moving in a straight line from point A to point B. And that's why the shape key seems to be doing some strange things. Shape keys don't actually do rotation. The vertex is going to move in a straight line from its starting basis, wherever that vertex was in its starting position, to its final position, however far along you are in the value. So if you can get that to spin the way you want, you can get that to spin like a record if you'd like to, but you're not doing it with shape keys. You'll be doing that with an armature. Because when you use a shape key, it does not rotate. Okay, so we'll jump back here to our original one here, where we have Jeffrey is changing from the basis, and we've got this this pyramid shape that he can do, and we've also got this this floor shape down here that he can do. Now we're going to export that into the Godot game engine, and here's how we're going to do that. Step 1, do not use the Collada or Better Collada exporter. That is not the way any longer. The preferred method now is to use the GLTF exporter. So we're going to do File, Export, and select GLTF 2.0 from the list. This guy right here. If this side panel isn't here, you need to press the N key, and that will open up this panel. Typically, I like to use the embedded instead of binary. It tends to bring over my materials a lot better. I'm going to include only my selected object. My transform here, I'm going to use leave Y up checked. If you want to know more about that, I mentioned that a little bit in the previous video. So I'm going to have a little link up here at the top corner, and I'll probably put a link in the show notes if you want to see what that's all about. But short version is, if that's not checked, your object will make it over to Godot, but it'll be flopped over on its side 90 degrees. This is actually really critical here. This apply modifiers is, it's not implemented great. So what's going to happen is, if you check this box, it will apply modifiers like, say, your mirror modifier or your bevel modifier, or whatever the other modifiers that you have. But for some reason, and I don't yet know if this is a Blender thing or GLTF2 thing, or if this is a Godot thing, but somebody along the lines thinks that shape keys are a modifier. Shape keys are not a modifier. They're an animation tool. They're not even in the modifiers list. So if you have apply modifiers turned on and a shape key turned on, your shape key is broken. Like, it'll come over into Godot, but you won't actually be able to use that. So I can demonstrate that. I'm going to create a new project real quick, and I'm going to call it Kill Me, so I remember to delete this later. Create the folder. I'm going to pick OpenGLS ES3 and create it. Okay, now I've got a project. So in Blender, I'm going to turn on my pyramid, and I'll give that a value of 1. And then I'll go ahead and do File, Export, GLTF2. So in Blender, I'm going to export this to this new project folder that I've made, and it's going to be called jeffreycube.gltf. I'm going to click Export, and then when I go over into Godot, so here in Godot, here is my jeffreycube.gltf, so this is the file that Blender exported for me. I give that a click, and of course I select Open Anyways, and you can see there's my pyramid, and what it's done is it has applied the shape key. So if I go to the mesh, and then I go over and look at this, I've got some new things here. Here under shape keys, there's my floor, and there's my pyramid. Now my pyramid's at a scale of 1, so it looks like it's already turned on. The trick is, I can't actually turn it off. It just doesn't work. I can slide this up and down all day long, and it doesn't do a thing. So that's the problem. When you're in Blender, if you apply the modifiers when you do the export, it's going to totally ruin your shape key. So let's head back over into Blender real quick. And this time we're going to do the exact same thing we did before. We still have our object selected. We'll do File, Export, GLTF2, and we're going to do everything exactly the same, except for in our geometry we're going to turn off Apply Modifiers. Do not apply modifiers. I suggest that you apply the modifiers yourself before you do this export, and don't trust the exporter to apply the modifiers for you. It's better if you have a lot of modifiers, you might want to apply them in a certain order to make sure that they come over the way that you want, and then you don't have to rely on this. Just leave it off most of the time. We'll flip back over into Godot, and this time we'll close and reopen that. Don't save. I'm going to just make sure that that re-imports. Re-import and reopen. Open anyways. Now, it's still there, but when I go to my mesh, you can see it's a 1 because it was a 1 when we saved it in Blender. When we exported it, our shape key's value was set to a 1, and it respected that. But now, when I switch this value of this pyramid, I can actually turn that on and off. I can edit my other shape key as well. When I change the value, it respects them both. I can do variations in whatever I want. So that worked exactly the way that it's supposed to. So the next trick is, how are we going to control this in code? We might want to go into a script and actually be able to change this in code and actually alter these values. So let's have a peek at that right now. First thing that I need to do is stop playing with the GLTF format. So I'm going to save this scene, save scene as, and I'll call it jeffreycube.tscn, the text scene format that Godot provides us. So I'll go ahead and click save, and then I'm going to close out of my GLTF version, and I'm going to open my TSCN version. And this is what I'm going to use from this point forward. That GLTF version, it's just for transferring the data from Blender over into Godot, and then we never want to use it again. So I'm going to go into Jeffrey's parent object here, the spatial object, and I'm going to click this little object right here, this icon, to create a new script. So I'm going to go ahead and click create, and then we're going to see if we can figure out how to edit Jeffrey and move him from the square into the pyramid anytime we want to. So the object that we're working on is Jeffrey here, and it's the mesh is where these blend shapes are being stored. So the pyramid, if I float over this for a moment, it shows me blend_shapes/pyramid. We need to remember that. You know what would be really cool is if you could just like control click or click and drag that or something and just drop that path right into your script. Wouldn't that be cool? I don't think you can do that. If somebody knows how to do that, show me. Otherwise, may the lords of Godot add that feature someday. So we're going to go into this script, and we're going to change this based on whether or not we hit the space bar. So we'll verify what we're going to hit here with the inputs. So if I go to Project and Project Settings and go to the Input Map tab, you can see if I hit the space key, that is going to send Godot the user interface accept. So I'm going to press space, and it's going to send accept to Godot. So we'll add a function called input, and that is going to, we're going to want to check and see if we've pressed that spacebar. So we'll say if input dot is action pressed, and the thing we've chosen is accept. So we'll put that in there. So if we've hit the space bar, then we need to do something. Now, what I want to do is check the value of this. So this pyramid, for example, let's do the pyramid. Blend_shapes/pyramid. I'm only going to come back here 3 more times because I can't remember it. Blend, is it blends? Blend_shapes/pyramid. All right, so we'll go back to our script, and we're going to say, I don't know, we need a variable. Bob. Bob is a terrible name for a variable. Never use that. So Bob is going to be equal to, and what we're going to do is we're just going to use the get command. We're going to say get, and actually we're not going to get it off of this level. We need to get it off of Jeffrey, don't we? So let me dump that real quick. So we will say Jeffrey, and then we'll say get, and then we will say blend, well, that needs to be in quotes, quote, blend_shapes/pyramid. Okay, did I get that right? Blend_shapes/pyramid. That was blend_shapes/pyramid. All right, had to make sure I spelled that right, or this is going to work right. So Bob is equal to whatever value is being stored there. And the value that's being stored there, it's going to be a 0 or a 1, right? Pyramid can be a 0 or a 1 or anywhere in between. So back to the script. What we're going to say is if Bob equals 0, then we're going to do something. Otherwise, we're going to do something else. So the thing that we're going to do is we are going to see if Bob is 0, that means the pyramid is, the shape key is basically off. then we are going to now use the set command. It's probably the easiest way for us to access that value. So we're just going to say Jeffrey.set, and then we're going to give it the exact same string that we did before. I'll just copy it real quick because I'm lazy. And lazy is a good thing because it makes you find easier ways to do things. So set, this is the parameter that we're going to change, and we'll do comma, and then we need to provide a value. So then we're going to say you're equal to a 1. So if Bob, which is the value in the shape key, if this is a 0, then we'll set it to a 1. I'm going to copy all of that. Otherwise, Jeffrey is going to be equal to a 0. So in theory, if I type this right, when we run this, we'll hit the space bar, and when I do, it's going to switch back and forth between a pyramid and a cube. I'll have to save this real quick. Oh, I forgot one of the most important things, and that is you've got to actually have a world with a camera and a light, and I did none of those things. So let's do that real quick. So we'll make a new scene, a new 3D scene, and we'll call this place World. This is real fast. So we'll just add a camera. And we will just give that a little bit more space in the negative Z direction. And we'll also add a light. Directional light, that sounds good. I'll just get it out of the way and maybe rotate that down a little bit. Now, we're going to select the world, and then I'm going to select the little link button here, and I'm not going to select the GLTF version. I'm going to select the TSCN version, the Godot version that we've got the script attached to. Once we give that a click, let me adjust my camera real quick. And now when we run this, we should have something to actually look at. Let's save our scene. I'm going to call this world.tscn and light this up and see what happens. So here's our object, and if I hit the space bar, it turns into a pyramid. And I hit it again, it turns back into a cube. So it's doing what we wanted. We're accessing our shape key from Jeffrey on the mesh. We're accessing our shape key here that's pyramid, and everything's going to plan. Now, it looks terrible, so I think in the next video, I'm going to show you how to make it morph from one shape to another over time. So we're going to be learning about tweens next in Godot. Tweens are pretty cool, and I think they warrant a little bit of their own video because there's a lot to them. They're a very powerful tool, and people don't use them enough in their homegrown video games, but they can really add a lot of professional polish. So all we did, obviously, was switch back and forth, but tweens are coming up next, so stay tuned for that next video. What? Over already? Are you kidding? Did you get a chance? Oh, my chair just broke again. Why does that keep happening? Before you go, do me a solid and click like and subscribe down at the bottom. This is a new channel, and it's just incredibly helpful for me to come up even show in search results. If you were to give a like and subscribe and hit the bell icon so you're notified of new videos when they come out. If you want to see some more, I should have some videos up here and over there. Give that a look, and I will see you next time. This is Brian Carey reminding you to be a scholar and a barbarian.